And we are live. Welcome back to the eSellerCafe News Roundup. I am Dave, and today we are joined by Mr. Richard Meldner. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, and there's no Matt. Matt disappeared.
Yeah, Matt is not here. He does send his apologies. He's currently having a bit of DIY work in his office, and basically the usual big wall behind him. There's a big hole in it where he's having some windows put in, and there's lots of noise going on, so it wouldn't have been a great experience for you guys watching. So,
well, we could have done a new DIY show then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's how to install Windows with
install Windows.
today's episode. So, Matt sends his apologies. I'm sure he'll be back next week. So, with that said, we've got a busy old week this week for the old news. To run down quickly, we've got eBay closing half.com. Soon you'll be able to transfer PayPal funds directly to your bank. Etsy's in holding pattern. That's a curious one. The impact of new VAT rules for UK sellers on eBay. Amazon patent envisions delivery drone beehive fulfillment centers. Again, another fun one there. Amazon rolls out Prime Wardrobe. Australian government delays the GST ruling. UPS to levy holiday surcharges, and Alibaba's Gateway 17 Detroit conference takeaways. So quite a lot to get through today. Some of them are just quite high level, and we'll get through pretty quickly. And again, the keynote for today, I imagine, will be Gateway 17. So interesting to see what the main takeaways from that are. So to kick things off, Richard, eBay's closing half.com from August 31st. What's going on there?
Yeah, I think a lot of people were expecting it last year in November. They raised their fees from 15% final value to 25% final value. That's sort of a clue, you know. It's like when you raise your fees to that level, it's a clue to leave. And,
kind of push you off the platform.
Yeah, I mean, I bought this thing in 1999 for $350 million, which you know, I guess when you hang on to it for 18 years. They somewhat got their money's worth. It was during the .com boom of just buying technology, buying anything that looked interesting. And for those that never really used half.com, it was kind of like an answer to Amazon, but on the pre-owned side, the used side, which is the CDs, the DVDs, the books, and it became very popular for textbooks, you know, university textbooks. And I think it's the reason why it stayed around for all those years, because it was pretty much the only thing driving it. Let's face it. I mean, books have gone down. They're all digital now. Music and movies are moving toward digital. So 3 of those 4 mediums have moved to digital, and you know, textbooks to some extent are moving to digital as well. But there's still a significant amount of textbooks, obviously, that are print. And I think that's why it hung around for all this time. But I think they're now at the point where, why do we keep a platform open? You can still sell the used textbooks on eBay. You just get, you know, and they basically said, okay, time to clean up this platform, get rid of it, and move every seller over there. It makes sense. I mean, I really can't blame them for it. I think it's, you know, it just was probably more of a distraction than anything at this point in time.
Yeah. No, makes sense. Half.com never really got any traction over here in the UK at all. So, like you said, sounds like they're just trying to make everyone jump to eBay. Makes sense.
Because according to you, every United States politician, education is free in Europe. Therefore, you guys get your textbooks for free, right?
To a degree, that's true. Until you get to university, then it definitely isn't free.
Yeah, so the university. I mean, that's what they were doing. University textbooks, and they were, you know, they're running $100. I mean, you go to a university bookstore, it's like $100 for textbooks. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that was for me where I first got started with Amazon back years and years ago when I was at university. Everyone else was buying their, you know, their textbooks from the campus bookstore for, like you say, £70 to £100, and I was finding them secondhand on eBay and Amazon. So,
exactly.
Yeah. For me, that's when I sort of realized that the internet could be a very interesting thing in years to come. Anyway, moving on. Soon you'll be able to transfer PayPal funds instantly to your bank. What's going on there, Richard?
It's just a little tweak to PayPal's ability to share funds quicker among people. It's really probably aimed more at the individual payment solutions, or the the person-to-person, the P2P payments were, oh, let's split the check, by 20, everybody put $20 in, and in order to get the funds quicker into your bank versus it's sitting in PayPal and then having to transfer and wait 3 days through what is called an ACH transfer. Most of here in the U.S. They say they will be able to do it in 30 minutes. It was a bit unclear if this is going to have or work on business accounts, because they obviously are usually separated checking accounts between personal and business. I mean, the underlying technology would be the same. It's a debit card. It's all this and that. The only thing I will say is that with a debit card, there's usually bank restrictions or limitations. So you can only pull out $600, for example, from an ATM per day, or purchase only $3,000 a day on a debit card. So my assumption is going to be that some kind of restriction like this may exist on the service. So obviously a large-scale seller, that would not be of any interest. If you're sole proprietorship and your bank account effectively runs through your somewhat personal checking account, maybe if you sell a few items here and there, especially handmade items, this might be a way to, spend the 25 cents, which is what it'll cost to do the transfer. It might be worth it to get it a couple of days quicker. I know that in my case, my PayPal transfers to the company bank are in 1 business day. So, I mean, I would think that, yes, that does depend on the banks and the relationship with PayPal a little bit. But it's just a small little improvement to the service. Probably really not going to impact most.
Something very similar there. Like personally, whenever I move money from PayPal to my bank, I've seen it happen same day here in the UK, again on a personal account. Yeah. So yeah, it sounds like they're making it slightly faster. But for me personally, it's like they're fixing a problem I didn't have. So
I kind of looked at it the same way, and that's why I think it's mostly a P2P. It's like if you're splitting a restaurant check, maybe some people, somebody has to flip a bill of $200, and maybe they would, they want to transfer the money more quicker in their personal account. I could see that, but then again, I would use the credit card. It gives me cash back
more
so
often if you spend $200.
Anyways,
next up, Etsy in holding pattern. Now, this is a fascinating one. And it actually, some sad news is it's including layoffs, which is never a nice piece to report. But what do we suspect is going on there?
Yeah, you didn't see that in one of Trump's tweets, did you?
No.
We're suspecting that Etsy's being ready for sale. The underlying major shareholders, it is a public company, so it's not a private company. As a public company, you still, if you own a certain amount of shares, you have more power, and there's clearly a bunch of, there's one major active investment group involved, but they seem to have brought other people into Etsy, from what I can gather, that bought shares. So there seems to be sort of a grouping of professional investors, if you want to call it that, that is pushing to make these changes. Obviously, the CEO that they put on came from their part of the business, or somebody they suggested. I thought it was Josh Silverman, I think was his name. I forgot now. It clearly looks like when you shed 22% of your workforce in under 5 weeks, you basically get rid of everybody that is involved in business operations and marketing. And you say, we're not going to continue any branding exercise till the end of the year, which is a huge one, because that includes, the Christmas season, holiday season. But you continue to do technology improvements, which is what you bitched about in the first place. I mean, the writing can't be more on the wall than that we are just turning this into a some form of a takeover bid play, because clearly there's no interest to continue the business as was. And I do understand that, Etsy was bloated. They were more concerned about, carbon offsets to their Brooklyn offices and other things like that are typically not investor based interests. But it seems to me that 22% is a lot of people to just chuck out, and specifically the type of people you let go, and they're saying even it's going to cost us $16 million or so to do that. So they're taking a write-off immediately. They're not doing it over a long period of time. They're basically buying out people immediately. So everything seems to, let's fix the balance sheet, let's fix the books, let's do it all right, and let's put it out there for sale, because we know there's people out there looking, such as Walmart, hint, or someone else, maybe even eBay, always been rumored.
Yeah, eBay would be the other one, but it's like you say, it's a curious one. It just screams, like you say, buy us in a way, because sort of reducing the overheads and staff.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I've worked at one time for about 2.5 years. I worked for a company that was bought out by an investment group, and although it was a private organization, but this smells just like it.
So similar. And that's the thing, is like they've got rid of 22% of the workforce, which is a huge amount, and mostly from marketing and business operation jobs. A company the size of Etsy, you don't get rid of the marketing department, unless you're expecting, like you say, to be bought out by someone with a much bigger marketing department. So you're basically getting rid of the two pieces in staffing that somebody who's going to buy you out is going to have in place. We'll already have a plan for the takeover. Exactly. So that one just screams Etsy's about to be bought out, and I'm sure obviously the high ups at Etsy already must have some offers on the table to be making decisions like this.
Yeah, that's what
acquisitions don't happen in a week; they happen over a period of months, if not years. So this, we will see. We'll see what's going on there. But
I would be shocked, absolutely shocked, if by the end of the year Etsy is not owned by someone else.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I definitely think it's lined up for someone to come and take a little bit over there. So with that said, next up we have the impact of the new VAT rules for UK sellers on eBay. Now, this was actually something I wrote about this week. And basically what's happened is that eBay has started implementing an additional 20% to the VAT for UK sellers. This will begin to take place in August of this year, so in about a month's time. And this is all to do with the restructuring going on at eBay that happened ever since they split from PayPal. And the biggest sort of difference for this is, if you are a UK seller, you are now going to be getting billed from eBay UK Limited and no longer eBay Europe SARL. So, yeah, this is basically meaning that no longer is Luxembourg looking after the tax responsibilities. It is now being handled within the UK, and therefore the 20% VAT is being handled in within, like I said, within the UK. So there are a few sort of winners and losers here.
Do you think this is truly a Brexit implementation?
Potentially. I think potentially.
Or was it something that, because, I mean, I know Luxembourg has been under, a lot of corporate situations in Europe have been under pressure because they all went to Luxembourg and basically paid taxes there.
Yeah. I actually heard that there's more businesses registered in Luxembourg than there are people that live there. I've got no proof of that stat, but that is what I have heard. So, yeah, I think there's two things at play there. The UK was getting stricter and stricter, or should I say, maybe not the UK, but certainly the people in the UK were getting more and more vocal about big businesses like Amazon, Facebook, Google, all paying ridiculously low levels of tax here in the UK. So there was talk of a government body being set up to go after these businesses. And of course, all that happened with the story that I heard was that they did like a settlement deal with one of the, I can't remember which one it is, but they ended up paying way less tax than what they should have done. But the reality is if we start charging these big businesses too much, they'll just leave, and then we'll get nothing. So, and all the jobs that come with it will go elsewhere. So there's a big balancing act going on within the UK right now. And I also think Brexit is to do with it. Again, does eBay want to be dealing with the unknown nature of handling VAT tax transactions between Europe and a departed Britain. Who knows? By keeping it all in-house, it takes away that element of the unknown. So, sort of the large sellers, they could apparently be would affect as much as 40 basis points for their margins, which is quite a lot. Small private sellers really got nothing to worry about. If you're sort of under the VAT threshold, doesn't really affect you. So yeah, it's one of those. We're not tax experts here at eSellerCafe or understandinge or Richard. Pretty sure you're not a tax expert yourself.
No, I just every time I have to write them, I just cringe where they go.
Yeah, I just pay them. I just pay people. I just pay them. I'm not an expert at them. So with that said, if you are unsure whether this affects you or not, check out the link in the description below. All the links for all the articles we're discussing today are down below in the comment section. Click show more underneath this video and you'll see all the links up here. Click the one for the UK VAT one, and there's some links in that article which will take you to the HMRC page as well as eBay's page as well, talking exactly about the changes that are coming into effect in August. So yeah,
the one thing I want to add to this is this was one of the first stories we posted on eSellerCafe.com that was more toward the UK. We have another one we'll talk about Australia, and we will have a little bit more of this coming into the site because we've looked at analytics and we find that there's quite a bit of interest from other English-speaking parts of the world. Initially, eSellerCafe was sort of this American concept, but we're spreading our wings a bit.
Yeah, I think we're definitely we've unintentionally attracted a global audience, which is absolutely a great thing. And therefore, we were just trying to tick all the boxes. And if we turn into a global information and news website, then that's absolutely fine by me.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, this is a fun one, Richard. Amazon have patented the delivery drone beehive fulfillment centers. What's going on? I mean, we know Amazon love a patent, and so what's this one about?
Yeah, they like to create patents for all kinds of reasons, and so here is just one of those things that they looked at internally. How do we do fulfillment warehouses in urban areas or in heavily populated areas? And especially here in the United States, you typically just go into the suburbs and you put 100 or 1 million square foot warehouse out there somewhere, and people, some local city will give you a tax break for doing it, and you got plenty of land, and that's how you build a fulfillment warehouse. Well, you can't do that in other parts of the world, and you can't do this in certain parts of this country either. Like the northeastern United States is pretty heavily, populated. So when you can't go horizontally, you got to go vertically, and that's what they're basically suggesting in this patent. They created a vertical warehouse. Okay, that by itself is not, unusual. That I've seen that before. But they made it so that the drones, this is where the patent comes in, the drone landing and takeoff sites are all along this warehouse on this side of the building. So it's like balconies, basically. The drones fly into this balcony, and then there's a whole internal thing that goes on how they get, new loads and then take off again. I mean, I think it's like 20 pages, drawings and all kind. It's really kind of interesting and fascinating on what Amazon is thinking. It's nuts. Whether we'll ever see this or not, I don't know, because my first, the first thing I thought to myself, and then I saw that they noted it numerous times in the patent as well, is, well, local zoning laws. Yeah, it's like, I mean, who's going to want to have a beehive effectively next door to them? To their building, because these things are going to buzz around. Having said that, they put out a second patent that deals with how to have quiet rotors, and so there's
the one with the feathers on the blade.
With the feathers. So it's also in that story. So it talks about how they have feathers and how that'll quiet down, and it'll be automated through the rotation and how much noise it'll make. So I mean, when you read, it's a fun one, but there can be real life implementations from this, so we shouldn't discount these things. I mean, Amazon does throw out patents. There's one right now floating around by some people because after the Whole Foods deal, several sites picked up on a 2012 patent regarding that you can't scroll for competition in a store. Amazon has something like that, but that's so easily circumvented. It's not really relevant. So in any case, this one though might have more relevancy to it because it's actually this is what they want to do. I mean, we know they want to do drones. We know they're testing drones. Maybe it won't be this 10-story building. Maybe it'll be a 3-story building, but they clearly are they're saying, we're going to have this patent, and if somebody's going to try to do something like this, we already thought about it. Therefore, you have to pay us to use this concept.
It's so curious. Again, for anyone interested, the article down in the description, we actually have some images of what these beehive buildings should. I'm looking at them right now. Fascinating idea. Like you said, the noise is an issue, but with feathered blades, could that possibly get around it? Because drones are loud on their own when they're close to you. Can you imagine like 300 leaving from a beehive? It would be pretty impressive.
No, and especially the worst part is that in my house right now, I have a bee problem where we actually have to get a beekeeper here that has to take all this out of the roof area. It's going to be a major project. And I'm like, and when I saw this, I was thinking to myself, God, I just imagine the same thing just, I don't know, a half a mile down the street, and there's all these drones flying around. I mean, plus the air traffic and everything else involved with it. But yeah, I mean, clearly this is a concept, but I think we're going to see some version of this somewhere.
Well, that's it, because you cannot rule out people like Bezos and Elon Musk, because when people used to, people laughed at Elon Musk when he said he was going to do reusable rockets. And then what did he do? He just went and did reusable rockets. He lands rockets back from orbit now. So you can bet against them if you want, but billionaires have this weird way of just getting what they want and making it work. So I wouldn't bet against Amazon to do this at all.
Exactly.
Everybody laughed when they said drones, and look at what's going on already. So.
Yeah, the drone, that's the biggest one. I mean, when they released the drone concept on 60 Minutes, I think it was, and I was like, oh, you guys are nuts. It's like, now people like UPS, FedEx, UPS, DHL, every major logistics company is looking at drones. So, it's like.
And sticking with the Amazon topic, we have Amazon's rolling out Prime Wardrobe. What's this about? Because again, this is a US thing right now. I've not heard anything of this other than what you sent over, Richard, in the US. So what's Prime Wardrobe?
This is actually going to probably change the fashion industry again. And it's really a very simple concept, but the fact that Amazon is doing it is what's going to make the difference. What Amazon is doing is they're saying you can order from 1 million items, and if you order these items, fashion items that is, and accessories, shoes, and things like that, you can try them on at home for a week. If you don't like it, you just send it back, and you only pay for what you like. So this takes away the whole sizing issue. If you're not sure if you're a large or medium, so you can order both sizes, I guess. If you don't know if you like the red or the burgundy, you order both colors. Now they are putting an incentive in there that if you keep more than 3 items, they'll give you 10% discount on your order. If you keep more than 5 items, they give you 20% discount on your order, and they include a free return shipping. So in the whole pricing, of these products, clearly they have all these fees covered. Now they said 1 million items, and they also highlighted a lot of high-end or well-known brands in this. And so this goes a little bit into something that you and I actually discussed offline earlier this morning, which is Nike is doing, Amazon's picking up Nike, and how that's going to impact potentially some sellers. And I'm going to have a blog post, not specifically about Nike, but about the whole fashion thing and branding and how brands are going to potentially change on Amazon and eBay maybe in the future. Yeah, but that's another topic. But the key is when you have brands of that stature, they're going to have pricing policy rules, at least here in the United States. And that's why I think they're trying it in the United States, because they know they're going to get their 40-point margins. Because if the manufacturer brand says you have to sell it at $100, Amazon has to sell it at $100. If they're buying it for $50 or $40 or whatever it may be, then they have plenty of margin to do this game with. There's also a large, there's a lot of people here that deal with second-hand fashion items like Marshalls, like TJ Maxx. I mean, these people basically buy returns. You know, they get them through places like Macy's and people like that in the past. Now, Amazon, instead of repackaging the return goods, probably just going to take those and just, you know, send them off to these secondhand stores once the season is over. You know, if the thing comes back and was never touched, if somebody just looked at the colors, they'll probably just put it back on the shelf. But if somebody actually tried it on, I'm not sure that Amazon's really going to put that back into the warehouse. None of this is really discussed. Just for the clarity, I'm speculating here a little bit, but so it can go through a secondary channel at that point in time. So that's why I don't think marketplace sellers are currently involved in this, because I think there's a lot of logistical things behind the scenes that have to be right for it to work. I do think this in time will be good for marketplace sellers, especially ones that create their own brands or their own accessory items. And obviously, if you now can just try things at home and you don't even have to, you know, guess it, you know, that's just one more stake in the heart of the whole, you know, fashion industry, where instead of going to a Nordstrom or Macy's and all this, you know, you just get the stuff delivered.
That's it. It's just another stab at the high street, isn't it? We talked about Whole Foods last week, and this is another stab at the fashion retailers. Because let's be honest, being a man, I hate shopping in general, especially if I have to leave the house. I especially hate it if I have to go and queue up to go into a changing room to try something on. You know, not really my idea of a good use of my time. So if Amazon are going to alleviate that from me and just let me try stuff on at home, if I don't like it, send it back. I totally agree with you, Richard. It brings up a lot of questions logistically. Amazon are the perfect seller. That's how they see themselves. And are they going to risk a customer getting a product that someone's already opened, maybe not folded up correctly, is creased, and having that as their first impression? Probably not. So that is, again, a very good point made. Are they again going to look at other channels to sell that through? Probably. Yeah, and of course, it's just
all these brands have outlet stores, which is how some of the stuff gets done too here in the United States. Amazon might be looking at doing outlet. You know, they already have their own outlets. They have their warehouse deals, so that's maybe where they're going to put some. Maybe they're going to do it through their own warehouse. There's so many other ways for Amazon themselves to get rid of these returns without losing money.
Yeah, and again, it's just another reason for people to use Prime, to be a Prime subscriber. They're all about getting people to buy that Prime subscription, because I have a very strong suspicion that once you are a Prime subscriber, I bet they have a very low drop-off rate.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. I mean, they keep increasing, and let's face it, I've given
further into the web of Amazon.
I've gifted Prime to my mother. I mean, I know I'm stuck with it for every Christmas now, you know, because this is gonna be. She just raves about how much she loves it.
Yeah,
you know, I use it. I mean, I'm not gonna get rid of it. So once people get used to it, and I think that's part of the reason why Walmart is struggling, because Walmart's not providing, you know, they're not providing all these other services right now with Prime, you know, and I
think that's it. I think Prime is such a big string in everybody's bow. As soon as you have Prime, you're more inclined to shop on Amazon. Yeah. Obviously, they got the Grand Tour, which is a big deal here in the UK. I'm not sure about the US market for old Top Gear. Sure. But even like I'm currently, the other day, started watching American Gods on Amazon Prime. Fantastic show. So yeah, the Prime, they just keep bulking out Prime, and no-brainer value. I honestly don't see how Amazon are going to lose on that, and Prime Wardrobe just sounds like another good idea.
Yeah.
So with that said, moving on to Australian government delay the GST ruling for e-commerce sellers. Now, for anyone who was not aware, back in April, I want to say, The Australian government proposed to bring in this GST amendment for online products. And currently the ruling is for any product that is bought online for under 1,000 Australian dollars, it didn't pay the goods and sales tax. I want to say the GST, so they're basic like tax in Australia. And this amendment stated that instead, any product that was bought online was going to be subject to the 10% tax. Now, the problem here happened when the government turned around to the likes of eBay and Alibaba and Etsy, and not yet Amazon, because they don't sell other than Kindle stuff in Australia, but to Amazon, who are on their way, basically said, you're going to be responsible for taking that 10% tax. And eBay turned around and went, well, no, we're not, because we're not set up to do that. And to change the fundamentals of how our site works, we're not going to do it, because then no doubt Germany would want the same, France would want the same, the UK would want the same, and we turn into this, you know, tax collecting machine, which is something which we're not interested in being. So eBay openly came out and said, well, if you bring this in, we'll have no real choice but to geo-lock Australia, basically blocking anyone from Australia buying from the eBay website. Sounds harsh, but you know, that was the reality and the impact of what this GST ruling was going to be. They were looking to bring it in July this year, so next week. And it came out last week that the government had managed to put a delay on this GST ruling for at least 12 months. So that means that for until at least July 2018, the GST amendment is not going to be coming into effect. Now, this has been met with a mixture of criticism and applause, in as much as international sellers and obviously the marketplaces think this is a great move, that they're no longer going to have to, they can still sell into Australia and not pay the 10% GST tax. Some Australian sellers, however, are less favorable. They believe that it's basically giving foreign competition a 10% advantage over, because obviously native Australians have to pay tax, but the international businesses do not. And Australian customers are happy because it means that they still get this global, you know, selection of products which previously they wouldn't have had access to. So good news so far that GST has been delayed for the majority of people. What I will say, it's a delay and not a stop. So we will have to revisit this in about a year's time and see what happens. I honestly don't see how they can make a way of this working, but we will see. But so far, good news for that, for anyone who sells into Australia, for Australian customers. You're not being geo-locked. Everything is fine for the time being.
Well, and this unfortunately flows in this whole kind of political scheme that we've had for the last year and a half, or maybe 2 years now, of, you know, the globalization is making all these countries look at, wow, what am I losing in money here that I could be collecting? And then obviously that this is, you know, you have, you know, the easiest thing for any government agency is to tax people who have no representation.
Yeah.
But then when you do that, you don't realize sometimes that, yeah, there may not be representation directly, but there's indirect representation by people who get impacted by it in your country, that, oh, now I got to pay 10% more. Well, I'm going to kick these people out, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's an ongoing battle. I mean, we have this battle going on for eons here in the United States with sales taxes. You know, for those outside the U.S. Who don't know, but every sales tax in the United States is controlled by the states. And so every state only can collect sales tax within their state. So if I sell something from Florida to California, I don't collect sales tax for the state of California because they have no taxation legal. They cannot legally require me to collect the taxes unless I have an office in California. And they've been trying to work around this thing with marketplace, with eBay and Amazon and others, and they're all going like, you know, yeah, they've started adding some tax things in there here and there, but it's a constant battle, and at the end of the day, you know, it gets to a point where I don't think this will ever stop. And like we talked about with the UK situation, you know, it becomes whack-a-mole. Okay, so if somebody does it here, then somebody else will say, okay, here's a way around it.
Yeah.
You know, let's say, for example, that they have an agreement with New Zealand. I'm not sure if it exists or not. This is a theory that there's no taxation between the two, the same way we have NAFTA here between the United States and Canada. So now you get the product sent through New Zealand. And so, you know, I don't know, maybe, maybe that's too much work to do it, but, maybe you just sell a product at a lower cost, so therefore the taxation is low, but then your shipping charges are inflated because they're not taxed. I don't know, there's some ways.
No matter what happens, there's always going to be someone who finds the loophole, finds the way around it. Yeah. I think one of the greatest things about e-commerce is it's made the world a much smaller place in terms of trade. You know, you could set up an eBay shop today and sell something to Israel, to Korea, to New Zealand tomorrow. And like I said, that breaking down that barrier is only a good thing for small businesses and large businesses, but mainly for allowing small businesses to compete at that same level. So GST, I'm not sold on it as a concept. I don't think it will ever, I said this back in a video I did in April, I don't think it would ever have got as far as it did. I didn't think it would ever come to light. So far it hasn't. I still don't think it will. I still think we've not seen the end of that, and I'm pretty sure it will get canned. But we will see. We will see. Yeah. So, Richard, UPS to levy holiday surcharges to offset e-commerce costs. What the hell are UPS doing?
I find this humorous. I mean, it's actually sad. It's not humorous. It's sad. So for 3+ years, UPS has had all these failures about delivering at Christmas time. So they invested in technology to overcome this Christmas time problems with, delayed deliveries. Oh, but now in order to get them to you on time, we're going to charge you a surcharge because we have to make up for the investments that we had to put into place in order to handle the load of packages. And I'm sitting there going like, well, aren't you a logistics company? Isn't it your job to figure this out? Shouldn't this be part of your normal everyday expenditures? And instead, instead to appease shareholders, they created this. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. Is they created this fee that's going to try to gain back some additional revenue. And what this fee is doing is basically they're doing it around Thanksgiving time. They're going to do it right the week or so before Christmas. The exact dates in the story that we posted. And it'll be up to 97 cents of an additional fee to go to deliver something to a residential address. Now, that's whether it's ground. If it's ground, it's going to be a lower fee. If it's air, it's going to be more like the 97 cents. It's just another sort of fee on top of fees. UPS already, and FedEx does the same thing. They already charge, you have your regular normal delivery charge. Then you have a residential surcharge. If it is a zone that's outside of an urban area, there's already a residential additional outside the urban area zone, whatever they call it. So you just add on these fees, and all of a sudden a 10-pound package that if you were to send it to a business in let's say from Florida to Montana, might have cost $12, all of a sudden costs you $19 because it's going to some ranch in Montana. And if you happen to ship it around the time when it's Thanksgiving or Christmas, it's going to be another $1. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And the most ridiculous part about this is the post office doesn't do that. And the post office is gaining on these people a little bit, not by a lot, but small sellers are starting to see a value in the post office, I believe. I mean, and especially if you're selling lightweight stuff. Now, think about this too. It's like this is like the 4th or 5th kind of hidden fee that FedEx, or that UPS and FedEx have implemented. They changed the way they calculated large boxes that didn't weigh as much because, volumetric, we need to charge more for bigger boxes that don't have much weight. Then first it was international, then it was domestic, then it was domestic air only, then it was domestic ground. And so every year they added these little different ways of squeezing out extra money on top of the regular 4 to 5% increases, and you sit there and you just shake your head and you're getting to a point like, how do you get a $20 item nowadays to somebody across the country? It's impossible, not for free shipping. So the only way you can do is with the Postal Service, which is, has other revenue streams and and so therefore they can, they have to go to every address anyways. So I don't know. I'm kind of like getting to a point where I feel like, they all want to be part of this e-commerce thing, and yet they keep adding fees to it. And at some point, people are just going to jump ship. And somebody like Amazon basically already jumped ship when this whole volumetric thing came about. Amazon basically told them to pound sand and started their own airline. So somebody did a study on this earlier in the year. I read this. They looked at the load of the typical cargo plane that Prime Air was flying. It was lighter than the typical FedEx or UPS plane. So then they started realizing, because a lot of this is public data, this involves landing fees. So then they started realizing what they're doing is they're shipping the lightweight, bigger boxes on their own airline because it was cheaper to do that, or than to use UPS or FedEx. So these companies are just inviting for somebody to go, hey, we'll do it better.
Yeah,
that's how I see it. I just find it.
Yeah, I mean, the whole, like, we've spoke about this previously before, but this whole new world is of disrupting the old world. We saw it with Amazon buying Whole Foods, and how Whole Foods was the older company, valued at 220 million when Amazon first started. Amazon have since just overtaken them massively and eaten them up. Netflix is now outselling cable in the US.
Mm-hmm.
This new world of company is doing more than the old world because they're disrupting, and people will pay for convenience. Look at Uber and taxis.
Mm-hmm.
I strongly think anyone who can figure out the whole legal system, conveyancing when moving house, that whole industry is just screaming for disruption, and the people who nail that are going to make a fortune. Yeah.
So, unfortunately, if you're selling in the United States, it seems to apply only to the U.S. sellers, from what I can tell, unless they're going to, if you're a small business and you have a lot of lighter weight, smaller items and whatever, you might want to start looking at other alternatives, such as the Postal Service, because, quite frankly, I think this is getting really out of hand and ridiculous, and it's just.
Well, that's the interesting thing, is that ultimately the people have the power, and if people stopped using UPS, they'd very quickly realize that they're going to have to change that. And people have to vote with their feet, but I know changing suppliers isn't always the easiest thing to do, most time, or cost-effective thing to do as a business. But I'm sure if it's no longer profitable or no longer viable, many cities, they'll find an alternative.
Right.
And finally, Richard, Alibaba's Gateway 17 Detroit conference. What were the main points that happened there?
Well, it was a 2-day conference about how to sell to China. Now, when they announced this, it was a couple months ago, I first thought, okay, this is one of those, let's placate Trump. Let's do this because he's been talking anti-China for a year and a half through the presidential election campaign, and so I really didn't think much of it, to be perfectly honest, except there was sort of a political play. Jack Ma came out, I'm going to create 1 million jobs in the U.S., and everybody sort of laughed at him, and then I kind of followed this from far because they had pretty good coverage online, and I started realizing, there's really a lot to this, and it was really pretty interesting, and it's actually, I think, the longest article I've written. So if you get a chance, it's worth the read. I'm just really highlighting some of the interesting points. There's a video in there about Jack Ma talking about how he started Alibaba, or how first he saw the internet in Seattle, I think it was, in the United States, and came back to China and told people about the internet, and they all looked at him funny and like, what are you talking about? You want to do this China pages that kind of flopped, and then 4 years later they got people together again and got Alibaba Group going, and his goal is to bring people together. He wants to bring that whole, everything we're talking about, the global commerce, bring it all together. And what he is basically saying is, and we've been kind of had a few articles on this, the Chinese middle class is growing. It's 300 million people right now, which is the equivalent, more or less, of all of the EU or all of the United States. It's going to go to 500 million shortly. So in other words, it's going to get almost as big as both of those, the EU and the US combined. And then he says he wants to be the 5th largest economy, which means this business, he wants to grow his business so large that it is the size of the UK's economy today. And that's quite staggering goals, yet he's been able to manage to hit most of the goals he's talked about. I mean, you can't, in 18 years, he's built this thing into a $550 billion dollar transactional company, so, and he figures he's going to get to $1 trillion within a couple of years. And so what most of this conference was about is A, the global marketplace, B, how you can sell to China, and he would openly talked about the intellectual property rights and trademark situation, and you have to have the right partners, and they had people at this conference that would that could help small businesses with that. He also went into the various types of products people like in China. They like American products. I think you mentioned it, or Western products, if you want to call it that. I mean, you mentioned you had a friend that sold us sodas, I believe it was, and he had him as a he made the mistake of going from taking the soda can, converting into Chinese versus just leaving the label on there, using the UK can and putting the Chinese label on there, and sales drop. Well, that's actually was one of the kind of stories they talked about. It's like, be authentic. You are who you are. Don't try to be a Chinese company, because these consumers are looking for products from Europe. They are looking for products from the US. That's what they want. And so you need to keep it that, but you do want to look at potential making adjustments to products. Martha Stewart was there. She talked about towels. She says, look at a typical size towel in the United States, nice luxury items, the luxury terry cloth towel, something like that. And it's like 10 foot long. You can throw that you can probably throw 2 or 3 into the washing machine I have downstairs, and it'll be no problem. But you go to China and look at the washing machines and these little bitty things. It's like, you can't do the size. That's not what they're used to. So you still sell the same product. You just make it adjust to the Chinese market as far as the size is concerned, and there are other areas where you may need to make adjustments. The Chinese love buying things as a social experience. They like to interact with pages. They want graphics and videos and all these things. So the Alibaba, through their platforms like Tmall, can provide that. And they had a number of other case studies, mostly larger companies, but they did, show how you make these adjustments and how you can sell in the Chinese market. And there was a whole trading floor set up where you could meet with people that can help you get into the Chinese market. You have the distribution if you don't want to deal with direct sales to a Chinese consumer. They had there's also a section of vendors in China if you were looking the other way around. And I think I remember they had anticipated 1,000 attendees would be at this conference when they announced it a few months back. They had 3,000. They sold out.
Wow.
And so all I can say is, if this thing comes anywhere near you, you should go to it, because I think there's a lot that can be learned there. And if it comes, around next year, I'm seriously thinking about going to it, because clearly what I read online was just bits and pieces of stuff that was talked about. And while they have some of the keynotes as videos, but just you still are missing the whole experience of walking through the trade floor or show floor and interacting with people. And I could see that, unlike a lot of these other type of conferences like this really is an area where it's hard to find information on, and even if it's just to find out, hey, this is not something I want to do, but you might still learn something else.
Yeah, I think maybe,
and especially if you watch a Jack Ma video. I don't know if you have to
understand any meetup at next year's event, because it's definitely something which needs attention. I think, like, you can't argue. What was it? 500 million middle class by 2020, I think was the numbers that I saw.
Yeah.
And by 2020, Alibaba expecting to do $1 trillion a year.
Yeah.
They dwarf Amazon in terms of numbers. Let's get this right. It's like Amazon, I believe, are doing in the sort of 300 millions mark.
No, 150 something for the year. It's Walmart is at 700 and something. I believe.
Right. So
So I mean, they're going to dwarf Walmart. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing, is like the opportunity to sell to China cannot be ignored for much longer. And I think it's only a matter of time before more and more, whether it be marketplaces like Alibaba, Tmall, whatever it may be, will the integration will come, because you can't ignore the opportunity of 500 million middle-class people with disposable income who want to buy Western products. You know, I don't know about over in the US, Richard, but over here in the UK, it's very much like you look to China as the place to get cheap things, not necessarily the best quality, but because they are cheap, that's where you go and get them. Right. And it's exactly the same for them, just the other way around. China's looking to UK, Europe, America as the place to get good quality products. I mean, I can't, you know, I live in Manchester here in the UK. A large Chinese population of students who go to, you know, the universities here. There's like 3 universities, Salford and 2 in Manchester. And the amount, like, I can walk past Chinese students who are wearing Louboutin shoes, Valentino, Gucci handbags, you know, Louis Vuitton sunglasses. They are buying very expensive but good quality fashion because it's good quality. That's the appeal. They're spending more money than I ever would on clothes on one particular like pair of shoes.
And here's an interesting thing to think about. You live in an area where you have this resource of these Chinese students there. So if you're a Manchester-based company, one of the things that they, for example, brought up is, you know, you want to do like live video events, and through their platform you can do this. Now you can't do them in English, but you can do them with a Chinese speaker that also talks in English speaker, so like kind of a translation type of situation. They did a demo at the show just to show people how that works, because that is how the Chinese purchase products. That's the type of social engagement that they see. And of course, here we have, you know, certain areas, New York, Los Angeles, and others that have pretty good Chinese communities. So, you know, to partner up with somebody to expose your company to that market. And that's it.
I mean, you think about like the opportunity, like I said, that social proofing just there. You get someone here who's spending £300 on a pair of shoes or £1,000 on a handbag. If you get them on this platform and they're sharing it with their friends out in China, and they have this kind of money to spend, they're like, oh yeah, can you send it to? If you're going to spend £1,000 on a handbag, you're not going to mind spending 30 quid getting it shipped to China,
right?
You know,
that's one company. Yeah, the one company, jewelry.com, they never even sold to China, and they started looking through the analytics and started realizing they were sending a lot of things to certain areas or certain freight forwarders and stuff. And that's how they then started. And then they did more market research on their customers, and they found out these people were in China. So that's how they got to China. It's like we were selling to China without selling to China. You know, I know from my automotive business, we sell quite a bit to freight forwarders because I identify bunch of them are here in Miami, so I know the area where it was like, okay, Doral, Florida, you know that's a freight forwarder. You know, there's a City of Industry in California, a bunch of freight forwarders. I mean, you start to know the cities when you look at it, and so you know, that's what they were seeing, and so I think there is it's definitely I think there's a link. If there is not, I'll double check on my story to the original coverage of this conference. There's a tremendous amount of resources that they put online on top of the story that I have there. And I think that you should at least read through it and get a feel for it. And if it comes to town, you should go to it. Or if it comes within a reasonable distance, you should go to it, because it's definitely worth it. And he did mention Europe was going to be sort of the next area that they wanted to attack. I don't think Alibaba has quite done the same with Europe as they have done with the United States.
Yeah, we're not quite sold on Alibaba just yet, but I think it's only a matter of time. When you start saying, when you start talking about the opportunity there, it's like we know about it, but the vast majority of people don't know about it. And yeah, you can't ignore that opportunity. I think that is possibly one of the next biggest revolutions to happen in e-commerce is that East meets West, opportunity of sales. Very much, in the UK, we know that China sells to us, but we don't necessarily do it the other way. And as soon as we figure out that there's an audience there.
And here's the thing: it's like for all the containers that come from China to the United States, they have to go back to China somehow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you might as well fill them with your product. Go fill them up.
Absolutely. So with that said, guys, I know we've gone a little bit over, but I'm not as strict as Matt. I believe that a video takes however long it needs to take. So with that said, to have a bit of a summary, we looked at eBay closing half.com, PayPal funds being able to be transferred instantly to your bank, Etsy in holding pattern, looks like it's going to be sold, but we don't know who to or if and or when yet. The impact of the new UK VAT rules for eBay sellers. Amazon patented beehive fulfillment centers. Very interesting. Again, all the links down in the description below. Check them out. Especially got some pictures of some drones in a beehive. Amazon rolls out Prime Wardrobe. Again, just further bulking out the Prime offering, making it no-brainer value. The GST ruling over in Australia. Good news for now. It's a delay, not an end, but I truly think an end will come at some point in the future. UPS levying, to levy holiday surcharges to offset e-commerce costs. Bit of a joke. Not sure how long that will wash for before customers start going elsewhere. And finally, the Alibaba Gateway 17 Detroit conference, China. Huge opportunity. 500 million middle-class customers by 2020. So again, that's the same size of Europe and America combined, as Richard pointed out. So a huge opportunity there. So with that said, I hope you've enjoyed today's eSellerCafe news roundup. If you have, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. These happen every single Monday, 4 p.m. in the UK. Is it 11 a.m. New York time?
New York time. Eastern 8 p.m. Pacific time, Los Angeles, 5 in the morning in Hawaii. I'm probably not going to be awake for that.
Aloha, anyone watching right now?
Aloha, yeah, exactly.
So, with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. We really do appreciate you taking time to catch up with us today. Thank you as well, Richard, for all of your hard work this past week. It's been a busy one. And yeah, we'll catch up next week and yeah, find out what's going on in the world of e-commerce, as always.
All right. Take care.
Have a good one, guys. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye. See you.
Bye.